So I'm getting everybody up on Facebook Live, so bear with us. Okay, we should be live. Are we live, Josh?
We are live.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Lori O'Brien, look at there. And Frank Zumbro, oh my gosh, I love seeing Kimberly. I love seeing these faces from the past. Dustin, Andy, awesome. This is so great to see everybody. All right, well, Josh, why don't you get us going?
All right, let's go. Hey guys, how are you? It is October 5th, unbelievably, but we're still moving. So glad you guys can join us. We've got a big crowd here on Zoom today and then Facebook Live. So thanks for tuning in. Quick notes for housekeeping. We are going to be posting this episode to Facebook as we always do. And we encourage you to go to Facebook to meet up with anybody that we can't necessarily converse with on this meeting, but a lot of networking can be done through the Facebook site to say hello to old friends and what have you. We're hearing from John Piester today, old friend, almost family here from way back. So excited to hear John's thoughts on the experiential industry today, and it's going to be a great discussion. I would encourage anyone who has questions, thoughts, or comments, throw it down in the chat section so we can get Piester to answer a few of those for us before we rush off at bottom of the hour. So with that said, I would pass it back over to Susan and Dill, and we'll get started.
Okay,
Becky,
Dill.
Here we go with the intrepid spirits, right? The sea is dangerous and storms are terrible, but these have never been sufficient reasons to remain ashore. Unlike timid souls, intrepid spirits seek victory over those things that seem impossible. It is with an iron will that they embark on the most daring of all adventures to meet the shadowy future without fear and conquer the unknown. Our buddy Ferdinand Magellan. I share real quickly, one of our students from University of Georgia lead program is now working as a senior accountant in the US government, where they're doing some double secret stuff. And I get a text from her today and says it's going really terrible or tough, but she basically puts down, intrepid spirits and had that poem in a text to me this morning. So I guess it does work. Real quick, start off here. I'm reading a book by a guy named Robert Reich. It's called The Common Good. And I highly recommend this book because it opens one's eyes to what we all need to be thinking of these days, the common good. So I recommend it. Good. It'd take you a day to read it. It's a good book. Anyway, I'll pass it off. Sunshine, introduce our man Piester, P. Diddy.
Well, John goes way back in our life, and he sent me his little bio, and I was looking at the ages of his children, 19, 18, and 14. I'm like, John, how did that happen? You were barely 19 when we met you.
Exactly.
So John has been quite a part of our life. Started, I think Dill met him at Momentum when he came and worked for the group there. And then he went and worked for the Olympic Committee in Salt Lake and managed the hockey venue. And then he came to Ignition. And then he kept the tradition of people being in Dill's vortex of going to lead experiential marketing companies. And so now he's the president of Red Peg and has been for the last 5 years, doing an amazing job. And so we're so excited to have him with us because a lot of our vortex are experiential marketers, and of any industry, we know that the experiential marketing industry has definitely had its challenges over the last few months. And so really excited to see some of the things that John and his team are doing to make sure that they continue to pivot and keep the industry relevant and alive. So with that, John, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you guys. First, I want to start with it's so awesome to see so many familiar faces on this call. Like Susan said, I started back in the Momentum days and consider myself part of the infamous Dill Driscoll coaching tree, if you will. You hear a lot about the Bill Parcells coaching tree. Well, he's got nothing on Dill when it comes to experiential marketing. So I am definitely one of his disciples. And, like Susan said, this has been a really tough year like any other in the experiential space. There's been several times I've questioned myself as to why do I continue to do this crazy stuff. But I think Dill instilled with me at an early point in my career just the passion for this space and all the great stuff that comes out of it. So it's really driven me and gotten me to where I am today. And I just thank you, Dill and Susan, for everything you've done for me in my life. So, to start, I was going to talk about how this space has evolved. And it got me thinking back to when I started at Momentum and I was on the road, and digital wasn't something we really needed to worry about. There were no cell phones back then. I had a pager, right? That's how people got in front of me. Remember, Bill, we had 1-800 call ATT. I bring that up to my kids, and they're like, what the heck is 1-800 call ATT? That's who knows what a payphone is anymore. So let's just say digital wasn't a huge concern when we first started, at least when I first started in this industry. But man, what an impact it has made. Experiential, when I was always known as one-to-one marketing, and then we had the birth of social media and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, okay, now we can get people to share their experiences. So it became, one-to-one, and now all of a sudden it was one-to-one to many. But I think throughout my journey, there was always this struggle on how you could bring digital into the physical engagement. And we struggled for a long time with it. It always felt like it was bolted on, right? My mind especially too, because I came up with it, was like, we always went to the physical first. The digital was kind of something that was an afterthought and maybe, didn't have the same level of impact that it could have at times. And, COVID has forced us to put down the physical and only think in the digital space. And I just think that's going to have a huge and lasting impact into where we go for the future. I mean, nobody has the crystal ball, but I can say that I've seen, what I think are a lot of brands that are doing it the right way, even during this time of crisis. For us, we always talk about, with brands, experiential is not just about events. Experiential is about providing an engaging experience to consumers. And that doesn't have to be physical. I still think probably the most effective way to do that is when you're physically, there's nobody on this call I wouldn't rather be sitting in a room with than on a Zoom chat. But there are ways to have meaningful engagements with consumers through digital means. You can see it happening today. So, a lot of what we've talked to brands about right now is you can't just hit the pause button and wait for everything to be back to normal. You have to find ways to creatively continue to engage and create that brand love for your consumers. So we've been doing that on the B2C front. But I think, COVID has also provided some challenges in some other fronts. We looked a lot into the B2B space. Normally you'd be taking clients out to dinners or your partners out to dinners and finding ways to connect and grow your business. But now you're not as easily able to do that. So we've been kind of trying to come up with ways that people can reach out to their clients, can have an interactive engagement through a Zoom platform or something else. A lot of people talk about Zoom fatigue, and I think Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So what we try to do is say, it's not about just getting on and talking, it's about creating an experience while you're on, right? So how can you engage that person and give them an activity or something that you guys can do together? One of the things that I think we've done pretty well at Red Peg, and it probably comes from our charity background, Chance for Life, which is a large charity poker tournament, is we've created this digital poker platform, which we've been able to use for engaging with clients, it's not just a happy hour where people are getting on and chatting, we're actually playing a poker game together. So it's been a way to engage people, have really meaningful conversations, but you're also doing something, right? It's different, right? So it's providing them with that experience that they maybe aren't normally getting through all the different things that are going on. Excuse me. So, outside of B2B, the other space that we're finding some opportunities, and I think it's going to be a challenge that continues after this, is how are you providing experiences for your employees? right now. Most people don't have people at their offices, so you're not getting to see them on a day-to-day basis. And employee engagement, I think is something experiential marketing companies can do very well, because you're used to providing great experiences for consumers. It's something here at Red Peg that we put a lot of emphasis on. It's been part of the 25-year history at Red Peg, and it's something we're actually been challenged with during this time, because we've got people that are now spread out all over the place. And with holiday parties coming up, that we'll do holiday parties. Again, experiential is about how to create that fun way to interact and engage with whatever your audience is. And we think we've come up with some pretty cool ways to do that on something that's a little bit more than a video chat, right? There's this virtual tables platform that we've been working with that allows like up to 10,000 people, right? So you could have 10,000 people come into a virtual room like this, but then we have the ability to move you. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. My phone wants to play along. But then you have the ability to move people out. So let's say Andy Williams wants to go and play some Pictionary with some other, employees that he works with. He can go over to the Pictionary room and play Pictionary, right? So he's got that engagement going over there. Let's say Jennifer Jordan and Lori O'Brien want to go into the wine tasting room, right? Because they signed up for that. So they got a couple bottles of wine shipped to them earlier that day. And now they've got a wine expert that's going to take them through the ins and outs of the wine thing, right? So it's creating experiences still. It's just not in the physical sense. And we think that that's going to be something that companies are going to have to think of going forward, because you've seen a lot of brands say, we're not going to go back to the way it was, right? We're not going to spend the ridiculous amounts of money on, paying rent. We had, we were going to be dealing with an issue of space in our office before all of this hit, and now we've found, well, we can work out pretty well virtually if we have to. I still don't think it's ideal, right? I think people are going to go back to physical. I think one of the big concerns that a lot of the brands that we talked to had initially was, when all this is over, are people going to be willing to go back to events? Arenas going to be full again. Our concerts going to be well attended. I think that theory's been debunked, right? I think if you give people the opportunity to go back, they are thirsty for that. I think you've seen some concert ticket sales for next year go on sale and they sell out like that. I think that, maybe that's one of the problems. We've had some events where people have tried to do some things and gotten people together, and it was a little bit too early, but I certainly feel like, that's not something brands are as worried about anymore. I think when it's safe, you will see mass events coming back in full force. I also think that people have gotten very creative in how to do physical events safely during this time. I think we've seen drive-in movie theater experiences pop back up. We've seen drive-in concerts pop up that have been very unique and engaging. But even if you can't do the physical environments, I think there's been some great creativity that will live on well beyond this. I think some examples, I was going to put some slides together, but I'll just give you guys some examples. I don't think we'll have time to go through a lot of case studies, but some of the ones that I've seen that I think have done a really good job. I think Verizon came out really early with their Pay It Forward concert series. And they've even evolved that a little bit into some of the gaming and esports I've seen, where they've had some celebrities interact with folks digitally. And they've gotten some great audiences for that. So Verizon's one that I would look up. I think the beer industry, who's probably doing pretty well during this time, other than not being able to get the volume at their retail outlets, have had a lot of interesting campaigns. I think you guys had Thierry on a couple of weeks ago talking about the impacts to sport, and he showed you guys some of the great things like Michelob Ultra that has done with the NBA. I'm sure any of you guys tuned into the playoffs have seen how they're engaging with fans and bringing them to the game, through virtual means. They've done a great job. Michelob Ultra has just announced also their search for their new CEO. If any of you guys have seen that, which is going to be their chief, what do they call it? Chief Exploration Officer. Okay, it's in their partnership with the National Parks Foundation. So it's a digital contest to where you send in your experiences and your photos of things that you've done on your vacations, and they're going to select a winner. They're going to pay that person, I think it's $50,000 for 6 months to travel all the national parks in the Michelob Ultra RV. Right, so they've combined a digital platform and a digital experience, and they're gonna create that virtual contest and bring it to life in a physical one, where again, it's going to be about content creation and that person going out and finding cool ways to share their story and their experience with the world through a digital platform. I've got a long list of them. You know, I think American Express has done an interesting one with Unstaged, right? So Alicia Keys released her new album and her new music through an Unstaged platform, which is basically she, you know, back in the day, you release an album, it just gets released, and maybe you go to, you know, YouTube or something like that, find the music through iTunes or something like that. But she actually did a digital concert, and we were able to get it out to millions, right? So I could see that being something, how the music industry leverages this digital platform. You know, they're going to be hurting coming out of this. They lost a lot of revenue. I think one of the areas we're exploring is how do you do some really unique experiences through virtual hospitality events and meet and greets and surprise and delights with the artists through a digital thing that leads up to a concert. I think that's something that's, you know, that artists have done a great job of connecting with their fans during this time through very intimate, what feels intimate, even though it's a digital experience from performances from their living room. And they invite you into your home. And I think they've done a fantastic job of doing that. And I could see that, you know, relationship with their fans extending like that. You're not going to be able to do that in a 50,000 person arena. And then in the gaming and esports industry, I think I only got a few minutes, so I'll start to wrap it up. But in the gaming and esports industry, we saw this happening before. You know, I think one of the advantages we had back then when there were no cell phones and no devices is you had consumers' undivided attention, right? Nobody walked up to our footprint on their cell phone. Well, now everyone's on that. So we have to find ways to engage with them on these other devices. And I think gaming and esports is one of the ones that were doing it well before COVID hit. And they've been pretty successful throughout that because their esports athletes, their streamers are having that two-way dialogue. They're creating experiences where they're bringing you in closer to them and who they are, right? And they're providing that connection point. And I think there's a lot to learn in that space as well, because they were doing it before and they've just continued on with it. And I think it's really a testament to that space. And I think, you know, that's one of the areas that we've pulled our experience in that space to try to pull it out into other avenues like music and sport. So yeah, I mean, you know, look, I think when I first was talking to Robert about coming on and doing this, he and I were just having a conversation, right, about the impact that this craziness has had to our world. Robert's like, oh, you got to come on and talk to the Intrepid Spirits team. So I said, Robert, man, you and I are just having a conversation. I said, I'd love to. I said, because I've watched a lot of them and they've been super impactful. I said, but this isn't something like I got a presentation on or anything like that. I said, so what the heck? I said, I'll do it. And it's been totally worth it to see. I mean, look at all these, like Liam, Greg Padone, Michael Young, like Jennifer Jordan. I mean, so many names on here. Brad Guy. I mean, this is awesome to see so many familiar faces. You know, I can't thank Robert enough for encouraging me to do this. If you guys didn't get anything out of it, it's completely his fault because it was totally his idea.
I got a couple comments, and Josh, I'm not sure if there's any questions, and it is wonderful to see everybody. It's just really, it's crazy. But one thing I'm sure you're all well aware, but there's esports in colleges today. They're giving scholarships And you will see in the next, I believe in the next 10 years, you'll see the SEC having games, and they'll fill their bloody basketball arenas with esports. It's amazing what we're seeing here in just Paul Smith's College, where we have put a little unit in, if you will, a gaming area, and kids are coming from all over the North Country to play on our spot. And I know, like Canton Tech, I think they call it, up in Canton, New York, they have 75 kids majoring in esports and how to build the games and all that stuff. These kids are getting out and getting really good jobs. And this is a serious industry that I think, John, you're absolutely right. You know, the way it's going to impact the way we do a lot of things, I think.
So yeah, Dale, my oldest son is captain of his esports team at High Point University. He's studying to do cybersecurity. So at least he's somewhat in his field. He's on a computer all the time.
I think there was a question. Josh, you got it?
Yes, I got it from Frank Zumbro. So John, with digital and social media leveraging marketing budgets more and more, do you see experiential marketing agencies having to fight harder for the budget after this whole pandemic is behind us?
That's a great question, Frank. Great to see you again as well, man. Been a long time. Yeah, I think, look, when you talk about how brands are spending in the digital marketing space, I relate it a little bit to, how brands were spending in the above the line, right? Regular media, commercials and things like that, right? I think a lot of people shifted their marketing spend, and we're doing that already, into the digital space, but they're still not providing an engaging experience, right? They're buying digital ads, right? And a lot of times digital ads, they're really just interrupting the consumer experience. They're not enhancing the consumer experience. So that's where I think experiential you got to position yourselves more as, we're providing engaging consumer experiences. We're not providing live events. Live events is a piece of the puzzle, but we can come up with engaging digital experiences for a brand that are going to engage you and enhance your digital experience. Now, like Fortnite is done through some concerts, like live concerts, but in the digital space, right? That brands have put themselves as the sponsor of, or brought that to the table. They're not just buying an ad banner. And I think, some brands are still pouring a lot of money into ad banners. I'm a little biased when it comes to whether those are effective or not. I think there's, maybe something there with just brand awareness, but I still think to make that one-to-one connection, you got to provide an engaging experience.
Josh, I think there's more.
Yeah, we got another one here. So John, from Greg Padone here, what are you hearing from clients and potential clients on the desire to incorporate cause marketing and philanthropic campaigns?
So seeing a lot of that, Greg. I mean, we have our own nonprofit that we created, 17 years ago. And I think this is going to be an interesting time, because a lot of those platforms are shifting to a pure digital. We're going to have to shift to a pure digital poker tournament next year to raise money for pediatric cancer. And I think by building these platforms and the things that we are going to use to get through this COVID experience, they're going to be tools for us to use in the future that don't have it just be one event or, a couple touch points throughout the year. There's going to be ways to engage your donor base, through digital means that don't cost as much money, to continue to raise money and continue to keep that message alive. So there's a couple of ones here in DC that we've worked with. There's one actually I had a conversation with yesterday about, that are all diving into the space to say, again, how do we create a compelling experience that aligns with our brand identity of the charity? And it's, again, just about engaging that donor base, right? In a time where you can't get them together, you can't take your top tier donors to dinner. You got to get the message out, but in, again, a way that is going to be a compelling experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then one thing that I want to put out there, next week, we've got Andrea and Sarah, who's done a lot about future of food research out of Italy. So it's National Food Week or something next week too. So it's going to be interesting. But after that, what I want is I need at least 9 volunteers, minimum of 9, from you guys that are on here today or have been on here, but to share with us about what are some things in COVID that you've seen are positive and that you'd like to see continue. Like we've heard John several times say about how even though things, are going to change, they've been maybe for the good, and here's how they're going to carry on.
Right.
So I mean, if anyone that's interested in being part of that to speak for about 5 minutes in the upcoming future, please reach out to me. And I know you guys are all Intrepid spirits, so I expect to have more than 9 reach out to me.
Cat video, we need you.
So, well, his is he had a baby during COVID, so that's a whole new experience, right? So we'd love to have you guys share with us on that. Do we have any other questions or things, Josh?
No, I think nothing's coming in yet. I think we'll see some more on Facebook likely.
Okay.
Right.
Awesome. Well, one thing, Amanda Daniels volunteered, and who knows what next summer is going to look like, but even today makes me more committed to this, that we need to have a positive human energy reunion. So whether it's, we have to do it some way with a fun interactive, or we actually all come to Lake Placid and do a hybrid, but that is my goal. It'll be Dill's 70th year of being on this universe. And so we've got to figure out how to have that positive human energy get together next summer. So, so I'm going to count on a lot of you guys to help me figure out how to make that happen.
Have to go to Atlanta, or we can do it down at the farm.
No, Lake Placid.
So you can go tent up. But anyway, thought is thanks, John, and yeah, please get a hold of Susan Clarkey. I see you're on there. All you guys, there's things that to get discussed, which would be very important, I think. But I leave you with this, because it's in that book, The Common Good, and it started out with in January of 1961, a guy said, "Ask not what America can do for you, rather ask what can you do for America." And I find that to be very apropos right about now, with all literally the shit that's going on, and people aren't, it's just the anger and whatnot is really it's just very disturbing to me. I'm sure just to some others. So I just say maybe we should think about that quote from John Kennedy back in the day, and think about the common good for all of us versus the me too, all about me society, and how I can, get more. Anyway, I'll be quiet.
Well, I hate to hang up today because I love looking at all of your faces.
Yeah.
Thank you, John, for being the connector.
Yeah, the connectors.
To get everybody here. Absolutely. And
Good idea, Robert. Thank you for pulling this off.
Yeah, so with that, we're going to say hip, hip,
hooray!
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 Hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray!
Thanks,
See you
John.
all next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Good to see you guys.
Bye, Lori.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.